Hi everybody, welcome back to my YouTube page and thanks for tuning in. If you watched a couple of my previous videos, you'll see that we started on this Boss Hog Cadillac. You didn't miss much if you want to go back and check out those videos and get caught up. So far we've only got our one coat of chestnut on here, on the chassis and on the body where the paint was missing. And we did a few washes on the bottom. At this time, since we have so much real estate on this car, there's not much white paint left. This would be a good one to put some washes on top. As we put the washes on, it's going to change the color of this chestnut and make it look more like metal, rusted metal. So at this time, we'll start putting on some washes. Since we have the chestnut on the body already, I'm going to put the burnt umber wash over top of that and give us some dark areas. Where the car is white, just go ahead and paint over all the white with your chestnut watered down. I'm sorry, with the burnt umber watered down. This is again one of those projects where you really can't make a mistake. Okay. Now that we put a good wash of burnt umber on the white parts, we'll let it sit and dry for a little bit. If you want, you can put a fan on it. You just have to keep putting these washes on. We'll let this sit for a little while and then we'll take a look at it again. Car is still drying, but I thought I would go ahead and bring up the point that I'm not sure where we're going with this Cadillac. I'm pretty sure it's going to have a great looking patina on the body, but we have some options here. It doesn't roll very well. I'm very tempted to go ahead and do a wheel swap on this when we're done. Maybe even try to clean the interior up and put a satin finish over the body. This would be a really nice car. Or could be a really nice car if we get this patina to turn out the way it should. Just wanted to bring that up. We still have a lot of options with this one. It could be sitting in a junkyard, or it could be a really nice piece. As our burnt umber was drying, our burnt umber wash, I happened to notice there's a little bit of paint on the windshield. And this is another reason I like to use acrylic paints, is we should be able to take some water and a clean brush and hit this spot on the windshield and remove that. And that's what I'm going to attempt now. And it's that easy, it's gone. A little bit of water, dry clean brush, now that paint that was on the windshield is no longer there. Just wanted to show you how easy it is to still paint one of these cars when it's put together. Just a little more time consuming, but being acrylic, you can clean the windows back off. But if you're doing the rusting effect and you want it to sit in the junkyard, you still don't want to have any heavy globs of paint on there. You can just do the same type of washes to make it look cloudy and dirty. Alright, now that our burnt umber wash is pretty well dry, I'd like to go back to our chestnut wash with a very small brush, the smallest brush you can find probably. And just gently put a tiny bit of the chestnut on your brush and go in and put some tiny dots, as small as you can. And you want to do it randomly. Go in and put these little tiny dots. If you put too much on, it's still going to look fine. But these little tiny dots help as it dries. It gives you a little bit of dimension. I had too much on the brush there. couple on the hood. The smaller you can make these dots, the better. I've even taken the brush and shaken it off there before. Sometimes it's best to just go in like we do with the straight color and a stiff brush, making sure you don't have too much on there, and try to get these little dots to show up. So it's such a light wash, you're not going to see a huge change until it's dry. Really works better with the stiffer brush here. It's hard to do with a small brush. You need multiple little hairs like this brush has. It takes a lot more control with a smaller brush like this. And more time consuming. You're going to cover a lot more area with this bigger brush. Hopefully you can see the effect I'm trying to get here. When you're doing these really small ones like this, it dries a lot faster. Okay, after just 2 washes in our chestnut and burnt umber, it's really starting to look like some rusty metal. I think the white's still too bright, so I'm going to go ahead and give it another wash in the dark burnt umber. You can put as many washes as you like. The more washes you put, I think the better it looks. But I want to dull down this white some more, so I'm going to go ahead and blob some this burnt umber will darken up the white. And at this point, I'm just putting it only on the white. I'm going to let it puddle up and then sit and dry. Okay. You can't put too much. Try to get rid of, you don't even want to, try to cover up all the white. It's going to run off. And as it runs off, totally it will dry, and it will give you some more variations in the paint colors. If you see some spots where there's too much wash and you would like it to be in another spot, just take a smaller brush and manipulate it and push it into the areas which you want to darken up. You know, the gravity is going to pull this paint to certain places and makes it harder to get the color where you want it. Sometimes you just got to sit here and manipulate it, maybe blow on it a little bit or use a fan. It really dries so fast you can just sit here and keep dabbing it until it's dry and kind of control the effect that you get. I just don't want this white to look so crisp compared to everything else. Okay, let this dry for a little while. This process seems really slow because you're waiting for something to dry. That's the case it's going to be every time you do this. So that's why I recommend doing 5, 6, 7 cars at once. You know, it don't have to be all the same type of finishes you're doing or the same projects, but it will go a lot easier and faster for you if you're doing multiple cars at once. So I'd bring that up again. Okay, our burnt umber wash is pretty well dry, and you can see just by putting these washes over top of each other, it really starts to bring dimension and different colors to the metal. At this time, I think we're going to go ahead and switch back to our chestnut and put a lighter wash on here, especially on the white areas. We'll hit the white areas with our lighter color. Add some more dimension to the whole thing. Don't forget to hit the sides where it's white. You can overlap. Really no wrong thing can be done on this. This is such thin coats, you're just getting slight variations as it dries. Okay. Instead of letting this sit here and just dry and staring at it, I'm going to go ahead and go on to another project. Like I mentioned before, gravity's going to pull this away from some of the areas you want it to be in, so you might have to come back 20-30 seconds later and apply a little bit more where it's too light. Another good idea is to turn it over the opposite direction as it's drying and let these washes run another direction and dry in another direction. I apologize for getting tongue-tied sometimes as I speak. I can't really edit that out without losing the progress that we've made on the project. Okay, it looks like our washes are pretty dry now. You can see how we're getting some different color effects from all these different washes. Actually, it's still wet a little bit on the trunk. But as you layer up these washes, you start to get some dimension and different colors in the metal. I guess we're going to have to let it dry just a little bit longer. That's the hardest part with this project, is letting stuff dry. So it's good to do more than one when you're working on this. If you watch some of my previous videos, you'll see that I was using this Silver Living acrylic paint. It's a great color. It looks a lot like chrome when it dries, but the only problem is it takes a long time to dry. So there's another tool that I like to use. It's a Krylon Shortcuts paint pen. Some of you guys may use these. I've seen them. You have to shake it up real well. The only problem with this is it is toxic. It has harmful chemicals in it that cause cancer according to the state of California. So if you are going to use this, especially if you're under 18 and you're going to use this, please use it in a well-ventilated area. If you can use it outside, even better. The stuff is toxic and you shouldn't breathe it if you can avoid it. Now that we got that out of the way, I'm still going to use it. We do want to get some chrome back on these bumpers just to make it seem more realistic. We'll paint back over it to make them look weathered, but they were so beat up there was hardly any chrome paint left from the factory on here. If you get some on the body, that's okay, we'll paint over it. And the only reason I'm using this today is because it dries a lot faster. And I do want to keep handling the car, and if I use the other stuff, it's just going to wear off onto my hands. These things work pretty good though, especially if you have a fan or you're using it outside. It doesn't have to be perfect because we are going to weather the bumpers too a little bit, but it's going to look a lot better than what we had. You know, if you're using this on another car and you're worried about the body, get some masking tape, mask your car off, and then apply this. And, you know, to save you from getting it on the body. This is a lot less forgiving if you get it on the body. It dries really fast. Sorry if I got out of the frame a few times there, but you can see what I was doing now. Now we got a chrome front and back bumper. Looks better already. One other place that should get the chrome should be around the windshield area. So if you're going to do this around the windshield area, you may want to take some masking tape and fit it into space to avoid getting on the windshield. But I'm just going to go ahead and chance it. If we get some on the windshield, I'll take some paint thinner and wash it off. Take your time, get the right angle, be very gentle. We're still going to put a weathering effect on this part too. I'm going to try to put a little bit of this on a brush just so I can get down in that crevice. There we go. It's pretty good. All I did is just dabbing this on the table and get a little pigment on the table, get it on my brush, try to get down in those crevices. Okay, it looks like I managed to avoid hitting the windshield. Got lucky that time. Now if you end up dipping your brush in that Krylon paint, you're going to have to give it a wash in some kind of solvent like paint thinner or lacquer thinner. If you don't have that, some Dawn dishwashing liquid or baby oil should work. Alright, as I'm looking it over, I see a few places where I still see some bare metal. If you still have some bare metal showing, this would be a good time to take the chestnut and paint those areas out. Most of these spots are going to be on the edges where gravity pulled your wash away. If you put too much on, it looks too bright or too thick, just wipe it off with your finger or a paper towel. At least this apple barrel paint that we're using is non-toxic, so it won't hurt you. Alright, I think we've got most of the areas covered. Just looking it over now to try to find any bare metal. We're going to get rid of all the bare metal as much as possible. I think that's pretty good. If you want to simulate some other spots, on this car here I was trying to make it look like surface rust mostly, because I'm thinking about changing the wheels and maybe put a satin finish on this and paint the interior. Might look pretty cool that way. Now that we've done all this, I think it's time to switch to our burnt umber. Put some little specks on the car. This burnt umber really brings the rust to life, as you may have noticed in some of our previous videos. Again, using a stiff dry brush. Don't have to be this large. Some of you guys might have better control with a smaller brush, as long as it's stiff. Gently dab it in there, not to get too much on. Do your test dab on the table. You just want to get little speckles. I'm going to apply these speckles, I think first on the white, Put some speckles on the white. If you put it on too thick anywhere, just dab it off with your finger. You want to put it on as gently as possible. Maybe a little heavier towards the bottom. If you put the chestnut on and it's not totally dry, as long as you're not putting this on extremely thick, you shouldn't have an issue. You see, I like to take some back off with my finger in a lot of places. Too much there. Gently touch it as lightly as you can, just to put some little dots here and there. Okay, remember, if you can go too far and it's just going to end up looking like something that should just stay in a junkyard. I don't want to go too far. It's easy to do. I still want this to look like something that somebody might have just sprayed a clear coat on, put some nice wheels on, and enjoyed driving it. All right, I think we're going to switch to our lighter color, the chestnut, and maybe put some speckles of that on it as well. There's a couple places where I may have put it on a little too thick for my taste, so I'd like to lighten those areas up first. A little bit too much right there on the fender top. Won't hurt to just go around and randomly touch it here and there with some of the chestnut. Give it a little variation. Especially where there's some white. Just a little bit of this chestnut on the white. It's going to make it look good. If you look the car over and you see any of the original factory paint starting to peel off anywhere, this would be a good time to try to seal that down with some paint pigment. I see a spot here. You might have to put a little bit more on than you want, but we'll fix that. We need something to hold that original paint on in that spot. Out of all those chips in this car, I only saw that one spot. Now we have this obvious blotch on the hood, but we can fix that. Now we have something to hold that original paint on. Now, I mentioned in some of the earlier videos, you don't have to wait for these two colors to totally dry when you're just dabbing them gently on top of each other. Alright, we'll let this dry for a little while, take a final look at it, and see what else we can do. We're almost finished. Alright, I've been looking the car over. I don't think we want to do too much more to the body, except for maybe put a few more washes over this paint now. It'll help dull down some of these places, help blend things together a little better. And I think we're going to do a random wash, just touch it here and there with our small brush. I don't want to get rid of all the light areas. I like some of the light areas, but this area here that we put some extra paint on, it's a little too light for me, so I want to darken it up. Here's another spot, looks a little too light. Maybe paint this in around the opening of the trunk lid. Try to darken that area up. Same with the lines on the hood. I want to do a wash on those. Darken some of these areas up. Just putting this wash, one of these final washes, into the contour lines of the body. Maybe where the doors close. All right, it's really starting to look pretty rusty. I think we've put enough rust on here. We'll let this dry. When we come back to our next video, I think we'll disassemble the car, redo the interior, put a wheel swap on it, spray a satin finish over the body, put it back together, and give it away. If you like this video, hopefully you learned something. If you learned something, that's great. That's the whole point of making these videos. I want to show you guys how to do this stuff. You may know a lot of this, but you may have found something else useful. If so, please hit the like button. And if you enjoy these videos and want to see more, hit the subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope you have a great day.